So from Dan's wildly unfeasible mission to Venus, coming back to
which is totally going to happen.
come back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. We're going to talk about an actual possible mission in the very near future.
And I will show you my workings, by the way, if you challenge. Yes.
To one of the moons of Jupiter, Europa.
Yes.
Now, this is all bound up in the search for life, because that's one of humanity's biggest sort of chips on our shoulder, really, isn't it? Or the constant search for life. One of the big things about various space telescopes we put up is a search for life. Even the James Webb Space Telescope, one of the instruments on that is to try and find signatures in exoplanets, see if there's life. And whenever we go, when it looks like the moon is truly sterile, but you never know. But going to other planets, on Mars, they keep constantly trying to search. I think eventually we will find either microbial life or evidence of ancient microbial life on Mars. I think we probably will. But what about actual living things? Well,
as far as I'm aware, there's two good candidates, Titan and Europa.
Enceladus and Europa. Titan, well, maybe on Titan, but probably
Titan. There could be what is it? Methane.
Yeah, there's
single-celled organisms.
Yeah, there's lakes or oceans of methane on Titan. Yeah. So a couple of good spots are Enceladus, which is a moon of Saturn, and Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter. And I'm particularly interested in Europa, personally. So we've actually gone out to the gas giants only a few times ever. Voyagers, couple of Voyagers. There's a Galileo mission, the Cassini-Huygens mission not too long ago, sort of left in the very late 90s and got out there in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, they're a bit far.
So like we've only flown past sort of Jupiter and Uranus a couple of times ever, or Neptune I think once ever. Anyway, we still know very little really about the outermost planets. You know, there was New Horizons that flew by Pluto not too long ago, and we got some very good images of that, but we still don't know as much as perhaps some people might think about the outer planets. Anyway, the idea of finding actual life, perhaps even bigger than microbial life, it looks like Enceladus or Europa are going to be our best bets, because you say Titan, we did land. There was a landing on Titan. If you can play that Cassini-Huygens link, we sent a mission out, the Cassini mission. It was the first. There you go. If you play that, this is actual footage from the Huygens lander. That's the. You don't need the audio. That's the surface of Titan.
Yeah.
One of the moons, one of the bigger moons of
Titan is kind of
Saturn.
cool because the atmosphere is thick enough and the gravity is low enough that you could equip yourself with a pair of wings and literally fly, because of the combination of the thick atmosphere and low gravity.
Isn't that remarkable though? That's the actual footage of one of the moons of Saturn.
It's also the only other place in the solar system where you could have a barbecue.
Yeah, it's a terribly inhospitable place. You wouldn't want to be out there. That's the shadow of the drogue, the massive parachute that helped it land. That's that. So it's actual real footage. Incredible, really. I think that's one of the most incredible things, among the most incredible things humanity's ever achieved, is that Huygens lander. But most people don't know much about it. It was like 2005, I think it was, so quite a while ago now. But when Cassini flew in the Saturn system, they saw that on Enceladus is like an ice world, or moon. I've got a clip or two of or images of Enceladus. If you could put those up, and you can see that's Enceladus, and you can see there's a couple of images where those plumes, those ice, they're like cryo volcanoes, not actually volcanoes, but like cryo geysers.
It's a cold place.
Oh yeah. And what that tells us is that sort of tidal forces inside the moon are sort of stretching and crushing it a bit, keeping the inside of it warm enough that there's an ocean of water underneath the ice crust.
As it's orbiting its main planet, it's getting warped slightly and creating a kneading effect inside.
Exactly.
That then creates pressure.
Sort of, its orbit is oval shaped, or what's the actual proper word for it? An ellipsis or something.
Yeah.
So we know that it's sort of underneath the ice on Enceladus is a dynamic ocean, it seems, and it could be that there are creatures there, sort of aquatic creatures under there.
Focused around deep sea vents.
Yeah, hydrothermal vents.
And we have that on Earth. We have little pockets of life that only exist around deep sea vents. There's not necessarily any reason why they shouldn't be on Europa as well.
I've got a link, Samson, it's probably one of the YouTube links where it shows some hydrothermal vents. Yeah, we used to think that things just simply couldn't exist without the sun. But they can on hydrothermal vents. If you play that, you don't need the audio. Because it'll be sort of superheated water.
Yeah.
And also very, very mineral rich, extremely mineral rich. And so around these hydrothermal vents on Earth, at the bottom of Earth oceans, sometimes they're absolutely teeming with life. It's not just a bit of bacteria or a bit of algae, but sometimes there's sort of whole food webs of all different animals all living around these hydrothermal vents, and they've never seen the sun, they've never had any energy from the sun whatsoever. So if that can happen on Earth, it's possible that at the bottom of the oceans on Enceladus or Europa, that a similar thing happens, because Europa's orbit around Jupiter is even more extreme than Enceladus. So it's really sort of crushed and needed.
So basically a large amount of energy is being put into the sub-ice ocean, meaning you've got a liquid ocean under a sheet of ice. So the ice is protecting it from Jupiter's radiation. So it's quite possible that there is actual aliens. Aliens.
Could be that in the oceans of Enceladus and Europa there are sea creatures, whether it's tiny sort of algae things, or whether it's sort of krill, or whether it's big fish, jellies, whatever, alien versions, or giant whales. Might be things bigger than blue whales.
Yeah. Jar Jar Binks or something.
I mean, it's probably going to be alien krill, though, isn't it?
It might be like tube worms.
It might be like that. It's probably not going to be like the grey alien with a snorkel, which would be cool. It's going to be, like a crab or something.
Yeah, it's likely to be something that looks either just like tube worms or something. But even if we find merely sort of algae or something, or single-celled organisms, that's still life.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the reasons it's so wildly significant is because if we can find two independent examples of life in our own solar system, it dramatically changes the calculus as to the amount of life that you can expect to find in the galaxy as a whole.
Yeah, it suggests that the galaxy and universe is full of life.
Yeah, especially if you find it on Enceladus, Titan and Europa. If you find it on all three, then almost certainly the entire galaxy is just full of life.
Yeah.
Two can't be a coincidence. It's a pattern.
Well, when Cassini flew through, he did a low pass on Enceladus, and it flew through the very tops of those plumes, and it was able to sort of taste them and test the molecules there, and it showed sort of the building blocks of life.
Hydrocarbons.
Yeah, various things. So it's absolutely possible. So the idea of actually it's actually much harder and much more expensive to go to put a lander or a probe on Enceladus than it is to Europa. So we're going to go to Europa first. I mean, it's much closer. Jupiter's much closer than Saturn.
Are they, though? Because NASA did fly a mission around, I can't remember whether it was Enceladus or Europa, but they deliberately made sure that there was no risk of the spacecraft landing down. And the reason they didn't want to do that is just in case there was any microbes on it, because they didn't want to contaminate the planet, because they had ethical concerns about adding foreign microbes to an alien planet. So if they're going to go to these two planets, they need to get over their concern about possibly adding microbes. I don't know, maybe they just scrub the thing really hard.
Well, I mean, we've put loads of landers on Mars, and they are very careful. Well, they try to be as careful as they possibly can with exactly that.
Yeah. But it's hypersensitive on Enceladus and Europa.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. Yeah, no, they're definitely aware of that. Yeah, definitely aware of that. Am I supposed to shield the Islander in the middle of the segment? Hi, Islander, it's well good. Okay, so going to Europa.
If you end up in a dust storm on Mars, you're going to need something to read.
Right. Why not Islander issue 2? You can buy it at lotuseaters.com.
Yes.
/Islander 2. Okay. On Europa, there's some pictures of Europa. If we put up a couple of pictures of Europa. So, that's Io. So that's the closest one. That's the closest moon to Jupiter. And I mentioned Venus being some sort of hellscape. Io is way worse. Io, I actually think it's one of the worst places with solid ground that you could stand on. It's one of the most. It's actually like hell, I imagine.
Stupid amounts of space cancer.
Why is it so bad?
Pure space cancer.
Why is it so bad? Because for me...
Because it's really close to Jupiter.
Yeah, no, but what is it that bad about it? Because for me, what hellhole in Planet is like in the Chronicles of Riddick, where they have the crematorium, you know, with Vin Diesel who was trying to escape, and it was a planet.
I've never watched Vin Diesel films. Sorry, I don't know. I'm not joking. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
No, it's just it had 700 degrees.
You were purely
barren.
in them as a stunt double.
Yeah, but
had to go on a cut before I could play Vin.
Is it pressure? Is it the Is it
tons of radiation from Jupiter is the main thing, and again that it's being stretched and crushed. So there's loads of volcanism. It's absolutely peppered with volcanoes, and the radiation is just off the
just by landing
off the charts.
You get 5 heads.
Yeah. But then the next one out is Europa, and as I say, it's a very elliptical orbit. That's Ganymede. Ganymede's the biggest moon. That's Ganymede. It's very similar to our moon.
You got lots of
bigger even than our moon, Ganymede. And then anyway, let's skip forward to.
That's not it.
No, that's not Ganymede. That's the next one out.
Try the next one. There we go.
That's Europa. So one of the one of the things about Europa is that it's, relatively speaking, there's very few craters on it. Very, very few. Which suggests, along with all the stress fractures of all the ice, says that it sort of remakes its own outer ice crust relatively quickly in sort of astronomical terms anyway. So again, and we've seen little plumes, not as big as the ones on Enceladus, but again, they can infer, or they're pretty sure, pretty confident, that there's a dynamic core to it, and that there's oceans under it. And when it's a whole moon, Europa's about the size of our moon, I believe, maybe a touch smaller. So because it's the whole surface, there's more volume of water there than all of Earth's oceans. A lot more, like a few times more. So it's, in other words, a giant, giant ocean. And the ice, they think, is anywhere between 4, 5, 6 kilometres, maybe as much as 18, 20 kilometres thick. But then, all the way down to a relatively small core is
that's a good thing, because it is quite close to Jupiter, so you want some protection from the space cancer, but under that you've got a liquid ocean.
Yeah, of water, though, because on other moons and other planets, you might have oceans, but they might be other things. Like on Titan, there's oceans of methane, liquid methane, but it's H2O there. Yeah. And one thing we know about life on Earth is that where there's water, you need water, basically. You sort of always need water. So if there's water and there's heat, and hopefully on the European hydrothermal vents there'll also be various minerals that life also requires. But if that is the case, then there could potentially be creatures in those oceans. So what about going there? We've flown past it a few different times, but we're sending another probe. It's not a lander, but we're sending one next month. Europa Clipper, it's called.
It's not. Is it going to actually touch down?
No, it's not a lander. Right. But it's going to do loads of close flybys. But that's launching next month. October 2024.
Would it take like 10 years to get there then?
6, 7 years.
Right.
6, 7 years, yeah.
Right. We have floating cities on Venus by then.
But then the next thing is, of course, sending a lander.
Yes. And
so that is a bit in the future. NASA have talked about it and things, but there's no immediate mission.
We need a big drill.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So, say we're able to land on it. Yeah. We want to get through the ice, which is miles thick. Do you drill down, or do you just sort of have some sort of heat thing that just melts its way through? So the one idea is that you have basically sort of a kind of torpedo thing with with a very small nuclear submarine style nuclear reactor thing, and the nose of it gets very, very hot, and it just melts its way through the ice all the way to the bottom, and pops through, and then then you could have a little submersible.
If you're unwilling to risk microbes ending up on the surface, and then you just drop a dirty load of plutonium that melts through the ice and drops in. I mean, that's a bit off, isn't it?
Well,
I'm just going to dump some nuclear waste on you.
They do it on Mars already, though, don't they? Like those big, those rovers they have got sort of.
Yeah, but what if there really are space whales on Europa, and you drop a whole bunch of plutonium waste on their head? They're not going to be happy about that, are they?
Hopefully, the eggheads at NASA will factor that in. Okay, I hope. I don't know. So one of the last links I've got there is I'll put it as animation. Let's just play this and watch. You don't need the audio. So yeah, we can just talk about this while we watch this, because this might be something similar to what we end up doing, and I'm hoping it's in our lifetime. I made I appealed to Elon last week, didn't I? That I want SpaceX to just jump ahead of NASA and just get this done first. Mars is all well and good, and I hope that happens in my lifetime. I'd love to see a human set foot on Mars.
Elon is just overly focused on Mars.
Yeah.
There are better planets, as we talked about. But
it's possible we could do a mission like this for, you know, a few $1 billion, right? So the James Webb Space Telescope cost in the order of $10 billion, which is a lot, but, you know, Twitter cost $44 billion, right? So Elon's got over $220 billion. So you could maybe do a mission like this for, I don't know, $5, $10, $20 billion. I've got no idea, but, you know, it's not going to break the bank of some people and organisations that exist in the world. And because the potential payoff is that once the thing gets through to the ocean underneath, that the images it sends back sort of almost immediately confirm aliens.
Space whales.
Yeah, space whales.
Yeah.
Space krill. Space jellies. So yeah, and this is actually completely plausible. We do have all the technology, absolutely all the technology to do something like this right now.
How would you send signals back? Would it be like a long cable?
I think there would have to be some sort of cable to...
then it would refreeze around it, but I suppose as long as the cable was there.
You can see there's a cable thing there. There would have to be some sort of transmitter on the surface. But look, this moment, this could be the greatest moment in human civilization, that, when it crushes through. Possibly. I mean, we might get there, might do all this, and it turns out that the ocean is completely sterile. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, that's quite a high possibility, actually. But the possible rule, and then you've got like a little unmanned submersible thing with cameras on and all sorts of instruments to go and explore. But yeah, I just think this fires my imagination more than almost any other potential thing that we'll do in our lifetime. Like I said, we might well go to all the moons in our solar system. We might, you know, end up with an outpost on Pluto or whole cities on Pluto eventually, but not in my lifetime. None of us alive, no one watching this now will get to see that. But this is actually within the realms of possibility today, to sort of engineer this and do this.
I've heard that it's much more possible that we go to satellites rather than other planets in the solar system, at least in the immediate future. Do you think that's...
Well, yeah, so you don't land on Jupiter or Saturn or Uranus or Neptune. You don't. No, it's the moons.
Yeah.
It's
stay away from Uranus.
Yeah, at all costs.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's basically it. Mission to Europa.
Hi folks, hope you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters. If you did, go over to lotuseaters.com, sign up, support us, only £5 a month. That's how we keep the lights on. And go and watch our Lads Hour, which is like The View for Men, in which this one the lads are discussing the classic film, Hot Fuzz. It's amazing, you'll love it. And while you're at it, go over to X, formerly Twitter, and follow us at lotuseaters_com.